So today we are going to study the state diagram, which is very similar to the activity diagram. So you will just see here in some time. So agenda of this course will be, we are going to have probably a detailed introduction to state diagram. And obviously we will see what are different types of a state diagram and how do we draw. Maybe we can have a whiteboard session at the end where I can show you how can we draw these diagrams. Pretty simple. And at the end of this course, you are going to understand the concepts of the state diagram, and you will also learn how to create these diagrams and the benefits, the advantages and disadvantages of using this diagram. I don't see any disadvantages, but there will definitely be many advantages. As I have always been reminding you all, do not need to memorize anything. You should not spending time just memorizing things. You have to spend time understanding things. And wherever you see this small line, this is something, this will remind you, you have to now memorize. This is the time to memorize. And I will always write this when you have a formulas, because formula is something, no matter what, willingly, unwillingly, you have to memorize. But the good part, in this course, we don't have anything to memorize, so just relax. Now, what is state diagram? So state diagrams, as I just said, are static in nature. You can also call it a state machine diagram or a state charts diagram. State charts and a state are very commonly used terms. You will always hear people saying, hey, let's draw a state chart diagram, or hey, let's draw a state diagram. State machine diagram, you will hardly see people saying, but yes, this is also one of the names. And again, this is nothing but the graphical representation of a system behavior. So any of the diagrams, doesn't matter if that is a use case diagram or activity or a state or any other diagram, they all have only one purpose: to graphical representation of the entire model or the behavior or the particular system boundary. So that's what you do when you draw any of the diagrams. It's very simple. Now, when you draw the state diagram, basically what you do is you try to show different states of one application, if I can say, or maybe a module, or maybe one object. You will tell people, okay, what are different states and what is the transition, how this is moving from one state to another state, and you will give them, show them everything in the state diagram. If I may want to recall your memories, in the activity diagram, you might have seen something very similar. So the only difference between a state diagram and activity diagram is it does not have conditions. This probably you will not see the diamonds and forks and joins here, because in the activity diagram, we have to tell different conditions, different joins, forks, and we give them all the scenarios, all the happenings. In a state diagram, we are only trying to show different states of one object. If I take an example to make you understand, everybody uses cell phone nowadays, the mobile phones. So you have your cell phone sitting idle, the screen is off, you just see your you drive, the kind of just a phone, like it's just an item, an object, and nothing else. You see nothing. So what it is predicting? It is predicting the initial state, which is the idle state of that phone. It's doing nothing. At the moment you touch the screen, it enables, you can now see the screen. So now that enabled screen is your another state of your phone. Now again, it does nothing, but there's a difference. Initially it has nothing on the screen, its screen was blank. Now you touched it, now you can see something written on the screen, but it again does nothing, so that screen is another state. Now when you enter the PIN number to or your password to unlock this phone, once it is unlocked, this is another state of that phone, right? And then the moment you try to open any of the apps, that is another state. When you try to dial PIN in number, the key in the number, that is another state. And then when it is dialing is another state, like so many examples. So in state diagram, we only try to show different states of an object in a simple words, and you don't have to worry about the conditions, the fork, the joins, and all other things that we study in activity diagram. You only have to write the names in these boxes of those states and put the correct arrows so that people know, okay, what is the direction it is transitioning from one state to another state, what direction it is going. So you only have the boxes and the arrows. Now, this diagram is pretty familiar to you, I know, because we have studied this before. Let us go to the next slide and see what exactly is this, and we can discuss in detail about all those components, and we can also see how do we draw this diagram. Now, what is the purpose of having a state diagram in picture? Pretty simple, to understand the system behavior. Now, once you have gained all the insights on different, the states of one object, you would easily be able to evolve, how the system will behave, and you can, over time, you can improve that thing. Like I just have taken one example of the cell phone. So now once you know what are different states a phone can be in, right, and you know how this is moving from one state to another state, so while you map all these different states, and you also know how this is transitioning from one state to another state, you can easily identify and analyze the various events, how this will be behaving, what will happen in the next state. There could be some conditions. You will see, okay, if I'm doing this, this is what it is happening. Some action that you might easily be able to see while you go ahead and try to see different states. And obviously, what is the impact this is going to make on the system's behavior? Impact as in, okay, when I'm trying to key in the number, it is opening the phone, right? So that is one of the behaviors, system behaviors. So all those smaller things you can easily identify, document, and show to your business. So this will help you find out the whole system behavior. Now, some business rules and requirements. While you have captured everything, you know what is the transition, what are different states, so you can easily be able to know what business rules should be there, or probably business might also give you some of the rules. You may also identify and work with business to figure that out and fix it. So an example, okay, the phone was in idle state. When I touched it, it gave me another state where I can see something, but the phone is still locked. Next state, I'm going to key in the PIN number or password to unlock it. So now here it comes the business rules. Do we really need to have a password? If yes, what should be the password? Is that going to be just a key number, like just the numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Or would it be a combination of key and some characters? What should be the minimum number of characters or the numbers we have to put in for the password? All those could be your business rules. I'm just giving you a simple example that you can understand. So as a BA, when you're writing these different states, and when you're trying to find out what could be the business rules, here is an opportunity to talk to business, say, hey, I was just working on the different states, as I have captured or understood the requirement from you that the phone should be in idle state first, completely idle, and then when somebody's touching it, it should be enabled, but it doesn't let you use the phone unless you log in. Now, another state is the login screen where I have to enter the PIN number. Now, here I have a question. What should be the password? What should be your business rules? How do you think we should have the user to enter the password? So business will say, okay, let's have like 6 characters or 6-digit numbers or 4-digit numbers, right? Let's not allow user to start with 0, or maybe let's do not accept the password like 1, 2, 3, 4, like common numbers like people can use. Let's not allow user to have the numbers like 9, 8, 7 in this series. All those could be your business rules. So when you have this test written, you can talk to business, and business can help you find out the different business rules. I'll just give you a very simple example, like day-to-day example that we use every day. And obviously, this will help you identify different states, that a system can be. We just have taken the phone example. There could be many different states a phone can be in. Because if you leave phone example, if you take any other example, you will find a lot of things around you that you can have a different states, anything. Your laptop was in idle, you just opened it. That was one state. Now you enter the password, another state. You open some of the application, another state. So these are different states of one application or one system boundary or one module, you can say. You can easily identify and capture all those things so that business can help you understand the requirement in detail. So while you have these states and now you know what should be the transition, what direction it should go, you would easily be able to understand how the next state will be triggered. Trigger as in, okay, say an example, when I'm dialing someone. So the moment I'm typing in the number, that is one state, and then it is connecting the phone, it is another state. Now, once it is connected, it is again another state. So what I am doing, so it is triggering to the next state. So trigger is nothing but some action that triggers, that enables the another state. So what was the triggering point where we entered the phone? I touched the phone screen, I touched it, or I just moved it, shaken it. So it has given me to another state where I can enter the phone or the PIN number. So what it is triggering for us to give, allow us to put in the number, touching or maybe shaking it. So those are trigger points. So you should be able to understand what are different trigger points that will enable the transition, or this will have some events going on. So this is what you can do while you try to write this state diagram or any other diagrams. Probably like they're more the same purposes they're serving in different ways. Now, obviously, this information is crucial for identifying system behavior and ensuring that it aligns with the business objective. Business had some objective. If I take our example back, the phone example, what is the objective of the phone? Our user should be able to make, receive calls, and text. Three basic things. I'm not talking about the cameras and other those high-tech stuffs, but what should be the basic, things? You should be able to make phone, receive phone, and text, receive or write text. So these are things. Now, in order for to complete all these transitions, transactions, or these events, there could be various different states you have to go through to complete these transactions. So while you capture, you should be able to help business understand, okay, what are different states this has to go before it reaches out to its destination. And then business will be able to understand. The more they see, the more they give you the requirements. Right. So once you have all those states known, written, now you know the processes, how this is moving from one state to another state. You can also know some exceptions. Exceptions as in the edge cases, something which is not expected to happen. It could be good or bad. Is the both exceptions could be bad and good both. So exceptions, you would be easily able to understand, okay, what exceptions I see here. Anything like when you're analyzing different states, now you're seeing how this is transitioning from one state to another state. During that transition, you can easily find out the gaps, the problems, the issues, right? And then you can document those and talk to business and identify how can we fix it. Right. So once you go and analyze all those different states, don't you think this would be really easy for you to find out any issues that it may have, right? And you can also, like when you're validating the system behaviors from one state to another state, you know what business rules are there and how do we have to make it better? And how do we fix those problems? There could be many issues you can find out when you have a different states written, and then you can fix with business. You can go and talk to them, you can ask your questions, you can tell them your findings or observation, and the business will fix it. Right now, I cannot recall any of the issues that you may have. Maybe some non-functional requirements from one transition to another transitions. Let's say how soon this should transition from one state to another. The phone is idle. When somebody is touching it, what should be the time duration? It should take you to the next next state. It should be like fraction of seconds or something. I don't know. All those smaller things you can find out, once you're writing and once you have written. And you can validate. Once you have different states, the system has developed. Now you're going ahead and trying to do some testing. Now you know what different states this was supposed to go. Once you test that application and you verify with the states that you have written, you can easily identify any issues. You can easily identify, okay, this was not supposed to behave like this. Why it is behaving like this, or you can refine all those business rules accordingly. So pretty simple. So having said, any of the diagrams are not only used before the system is developed. This is always used even after the system is developed to verify the cross-check, to validate if things has been developed as per the expectation or as per the requirement or as per the business approved documents or not. you can validate all those things and you can find out the issues, concerns, whatever you want. And this is a very common term that we have been studying always, the communicate and collaborate. Since everybody is looking at the same diagram, they all will have a common language to communicate. They all know what is written. They all may have different questions around that. And you all can have one common dialogue or communication considering or evolving or revolving around that particular the thing. And this will be really effective for you to talk to them because you have something written. This will be effective communication between you and the stakeholders and the developers. Whoever is there, you can easily use this as a like common communication tool. You can collaborate with them. You can share them things. They will share their ideas, feedbacks, and you can modify and you can take it forward. It's like it's a visual representation. You get it. So when I see something, I understand more and I talk more. So any of the diagrams, not only state, can be really be used as a great tool for the communication, and you can collaborate with the team. Right. So it analyzes system complexity. Yes, so state diagrams helps in identifying and managing system complexity by breaking down the behavior into smaller manageable components. They allow analysts to focus on individual states, transitions, and associated actions or conditions, making it easier to analyze and validate system behavior. Obviously, if you did not understand this thing, so what happens? You have like a bigger chunk of the requirement, a big thing. You have to build the phone. Now, this could have really a big project for you. If you try to identify smaller pieces of that phone and you try to create a breakdown structure, okay, in one big requirement, so I have requirement 1, requirement 2, requirement 3, and so on. Within requirement 1, I have like 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. And then you have states for all those smaller things connecting together. And you can go from bottom to top. Maybe let's say I have a one bigger category. Within that bigger category, I can have a different smaller categories. When I sum these up from bottom to top, this gives you the whole project, how this is going to look like and how this will happen. So even though you have a really complex system to design, if you start breaking them into smaller chunks and having those states written at a smaller level, this will be easy for you to analyze all those bigger problems. And you can easily go ahead and help customer achieving their goals. Pretty simple, you know. Now, summary, as we have just discussed, you can utilize the state diagram for effective modeling, understanding systems behavior, what different processes, what is the system flow of any software application or anything, you know. Once you have the flow understood, written, you can go and talk to business and you can capture the different requirements. You know, you can analyze, capture different business rules. You can easily identify, okay, what exceptions, problems I'm having. You can use this as to facilitate your communication with different stakeholders. That will help you manage the whole system. It doesn't matter if that is really complex or easy, but this will help you manage the whole system easily. And obviously, this will ultimately lead to more efficient and successful business solutions. So this is what the summary is all about. Now, before I go ahead, any of the diagrams, doesn't matter if the state, activity, or use case, they all are serving the one common purpose, which is to make things simple, easily understood by the developers, by the business, and to deliver a great tool that business can utilize. Whatever I'm building, I'm delivering, that should make sense to business. That should be something that business takes as a valuable input, a valuable increment. My work should not be going in a direction where it doesn't make any sense to business. It doesn't add any value to business. To add value, we use all these diagrams. Doesn't matter what diagram we use. Now, if you ask me, when should I use a state? When should I use other diagrams? It completely depends upon the project nature and the module, the piece of work you're doing. It completely depends. You may end up writing state and activity both for one module or just one of them. I have no idea. So that completely depends what project you're working and what state of the project you are in. Any questions before I go ahead?
Can we call it a small part of activity diagram? State diagram is part of activity diagram, right? Which
It's not
will
part of.
define this, which can define the different states of the application or software, something like that. Am I right?
Now, officially, there's nothing like it is a part of activity diagram, but unofficially, yes, because moreover, we are doing the same thing in a simpler form. Activity diagram is little the bigger form with different conditions, and the state does not. So unofficially, yes, you can always refer it and understand that it's like a smaller part of the activity diagram. But officially, UML does not consider this as one of the subset of activity diagram. This is a separate diagram like activity diagram for UML. But yeah, I mean, for understanding purposes, yes, you can. All right. So now let's see the different components. The components are moreover exactly same as activity diagram with a very minor differences that you will hardly see. So if you see here, these boxes are little rounded. Do you see? These are little rounded. In activity, it is not rounded. It is like pretty square box like this. But in state, it is little rounded. This is the only difference. Otherwise, everything is same. So if you ask me personally, I have never noticed when I draw a state and activity diagram, I normally use the same boxes wherever I use it. But I will not recommend you to use it. I would always recommend you to follow the right practices and the right thing to draw. So if you can have these differences between your state and activity diagram, that would be really nice. If you do not, trust me, no one is going to notice it. People will just see the flow of the diagram, and if you have added any conditions or not, or what way you're going and drawing and trying to depict things, people will easily understand if you're referring a state diagram or activity diagram. So you don't really need to worry about these smaller things. But again, if you can, please do it. It doesn't harm you follow the right practices. Now, initial state is exactly the same as we studied in activity diagram, this filled circle. So wherever you start any of these state diagrams, and if you would like to represent clearly what is this, the start point and the end point, you would prefer using these filled in circles for the starting point and partially filled like the semicircle filled for the end points. Otherwise, everything is same. The same thing I was just saying, this is the final state where you're closing. So if you would like to depict very clearly, okay, this is the start, this is the end. You don't want people to start guessing and get confused. So you would want to add these two start initial or final state these symbols where one sees, okay, now it is closing here. The moment I see this thing, I would understand, okay, this is the closing of that state. From there, from here, from or beyond this point, nothing is going to happen. Done. Transition, as we have been discussing, you use this arrow to show the transitions. So what direction your flow is going, you have to use the arrow correctly. Let's say if I'm from, say an example, from A to B, or from, probably I will say A and I will have this thing and I'll have B. There's a big difference in both the diagrams. Do you see? In diagram one, it says the transition is happening from A to B. That means the A is happening first and then B. In the other transactions, I have written the same way. The only arrow is in the other direction, the opposite directions. So here it tells the B is happening first and then A. So this is how you use arrow to show the correct transitions in your diagrams. It is equally important and used the same way in activity and state diagram both. Let's take an example. State diagram sample. This is just a sample. So what is happening here? If you see the first state is idle. Do you see it here? Say this is your phone example. I don't know, just a phone example, or no, it's something else. Okay, just don't take it as a phone. So first state is idle, and I am showing here with this initial action. So from here, if I see it, I will know, okay, this idle is the first state. From here, the transition will start. Now the second state is send order request. If you see, from one state to another, now it is referring as an intermediate action, but this is another state. First state was idle. Second, somebody sends a request in the second state. Now normal exit, everything is going fine as expected. So this is normal exit. So if the order was normal or not, if you're saying yes, order was normal, so I'm confirming this order, one of the events, and the another state is order confirmation. It's another state. Now you will see we did not use any of the conditions. No diamond shapes are here that we use in before, where we used to check conditions if the order is normal or not normal. If normal, follow this pattern. If no, go here. Like you remember, we did it before. This we had this before the condition. And here we were checking if the order is normal or not. And there we said, okay, if it is normal, to do this action. If no, do this action. If you remember correctly, we did it in the activity diagram. So this piece is eliminated here. You don't see this diamond here in this state diagram, because in the state diagram, we are not checking any of the condition. We're just trying to depict different states of those software or that module or that smaller piece of the requirement. So here the first state was idle. Then somebody sends the order. Sending order is another state. Choosing if the order is normal or not is another state, and then confirming the order is another state, and then dispatching is another state, and then we are finally closing our transactions here. Do you see this partially filled circle? So we are closing it here. Normal exit. Now, if you have any abnormal exit, then probably from this state where the order was sent, the order was not normal, and then we close this, and we did not process this order further. This is the final state. This is closed. Simple example. You do not have to write any of the conditions in your state diagram. It's pretty simple. You can write thousands of state diagrams looking different things at your home, different states. In simple words, just try to understand there's nothing but different states. Different states. Your pen had in one state sitting idle. You picked up another state. You start writing another state. You stop writing another state. You again put it back somewhere, another state. Just the different states of one object, nothing else. One more example. So this is the phone line example I have taken. First state is idle. It's like let's assume this your home phone or maybe mobile, both. We can compare both things here. First state is your idle state. Why this is first state? Why I'm starting from here and not from receiving calls? Because I see you have written this thing here, and this is something I know is initial node. That means I know from this state, this transaction is starting. So idle is your first state. Then the suddenly phone rings. The moment phone rings, your phone will display some number and you will have to receive. So by the time it is ringing and you're not receiving, it is in another state, which is waiting for answer, right? This could be your mobile phone. This could be your home phone. Your home phone was idle. Your mobile was idle. Somebody dialed you and the phone is ringing. Either home phone is ringing or your mobile is ringing, but both are into another state where it is ringing. You're not receiving. The moment you have received the phone is another state. And then you hang up, and then again it goes back to the idle state. Right? Now, this was someone is calling you. Now, if you have to call someone, so your phone was idle in the initially, and then you lift the receiver or you like start typing the number on your mobile by trying to make a call. So this is your another state. Now, this is on a very high level. Now, if you would like to, as I said, we can have a subsets of the state diagrams. We have a like main category. We can have a child category. We have a smaller categories or detailed states. You can always do that. It's all depends what business needs. If I expand this thing here, see, phone was idle. I am dialing another state. Now phone is in connecting mode. You have dialed the number, press go. Now the phone is ringing. It is trying to connect to someone. So before the person is like, receiving this another state, connecting, ringing, and it is connected. The moment the people fix your phone, it's like, okay, someone is answering, it is now disconnected, another state. So this is just an example. You can have like a broader category. You can have a smaller categories as well within that. Anything that you believe will make more sense to business, please go ahead and do it. But one suggestions from my end, don't try to make it too small. Too granular is bad thing. You should always be creating until that level which is easily manageable, and which is easily testable and connected to your main goal. You don't want to have like multiple things that you cannot manage easily and you cannot connect, you cannot test, which is not advisable things. So that should be like simple, you know, measurable, that you can measure, that you can attain and you can test. Very simple, you know. So you have to remember, you would go ahead and try to write detailed substate, but don't try to be super detailed. That will be a bad idea. Tips and best practices, we have discussed this before as well. You always try to keep it simple. Use descriptive labels. When I'm saying labels, these labels, you know, these labels. So if you have these labels descriptive, this will be easy for someone to understand, okay, what do you mean by this? If I'm to start writing A, B, and C there, people will have to guess what the hell this A is all about. What is this B is all about? No, don't try to do that. Try to write descriptive labels so that people understand what do you mean by that. And maintain consistency. Whatever you write at one place, try to write the same thing at another place. We have been talking this before as well. So you have to be consistent with the way you're writing, the nomenclatures, the number systems, you know. So you have to be very careful. One thing, two different places should not have two different way of writing things, to do different way of representing them. If the one common thing I'm representing at three different places, I will also write the same labels, the same way of description, the same way of drawing all the places similarly. Otherwise, this will not be consistent. Using correct arrows is very important. We have just seen the example going from A to B or B to A. If you do not have that arrow correctly, this will not make sense. So please try to have the arrows very carefully. You have to validate decisions. Yes, try to do a dry run and see, okay, if you can validate the decisions or not. Simulations are very effective and you have to use them effectively. Review and validate with your team, with your business, or with your peers, with your managers. You know, as I said, you should want to make sure the work you're doing is going to the right direction and that is adding value to business. If you review with someone, you will know, okay, if your work is in the right direction or not. So don't try to shy, don't try to keep things with you. You always try to review. Don't try to like complete 50% of the work and then go and review. This will be a bad area. You may end up scrapping all the work because you may not be going to the right direction. So try to review when you have like smaller things written so that you can easily change it and you can save your time. Tools, yes, as we have told before as well, you need to consider some of the tools like Visio, Lucid, or there are many tools in the market that you can use to make it simple and presentable. Assumptions, if you have any constraints, if you have any during the diagramming things, just write it there. Our phone example, you assume customer will have a password to open the phone, but customer did not give you any such requirements, but you assumed. You just write there in the diagram, assuming there will be a password from the business, and assuming the password will be only numbers, assuming the numbers will be the max 4 characters. So as a good BA, you should try to find out all those loopholes, problems, issues, and highlight and write those assumptions and constants and go and clarify with business or your stakeholders to fix it. And you always need to update and maintain. Any questions so far?
Uh, can't we as you mentioned that state diagram is we have to include like all the details. It's so can't we write that in the activity diagram lane itself in a single lane like that, not the what do you call the swim lanes where it's transitioning in different activities.
You can. There's no fixed rule. There's no hard and fast rules. Like you have to follow this step by step things. There's no. You can have combination of diagrams. You can have simple one diagram. Is completely up to you and the business and the way business wants to see things. Perfectly fine. You don't need to have state diagram separately and you don't need to have the same thing written in the activity diagram with some relationship. You don't. But again, it depends what business wants from you. Probably you're not in the state as of now where you can simply go ahead and try to have different conditions, different flows. For that, in order for you to create a good activity diagram, you need to have a proper good understanding of the requirements. But in the initial states, very initial states, sometimes you will end up writing just the state diagram because you just wanted to see what different state this will go. And then you will think of, okay, what different conditions I can change here from one transition to another transition, like from one state transitioning to another state. What could be different other possibilities that I can add? Then you can start thinking of writing activity diagram with different conditions. But at certain times, maybe at point in time, the project is in very initial state, or something you're just trying to do a POC, you're trying to do some research, um, this spike, you're doing a spiking. Spiking is nothing but to research things. You don't know what is going to happen. Let's say someone is asking, hey, I was thinking if we could do this thing, how this would behave. What is the way we can check it? So you will say, okay, let me try to do some research. Let me have spiking it. So during that processes, you would want to have these state diagrams just to figure out something, how this will behave. So you might need to do this. You think you may not need to do things separately as a state diagram. It completely depends. So answer is yes and no, both. Depends. Any other question?
And the state diagram looks more or less like the activity diagram, but only it's in a detailed form.
What do you mean by detailed form?
Like you said, like we have to mention the details in the activity diagram. We don't have, like, it's not in that detail.
I'm not sure if I'm following you. Detail as in the subset of the diagrams you're saying, right? Yeah, subsets in activity is not required. Activity is just an activity. You have different activities and you're showing what direction it is flowing and what conditions it has to go through in order to complete certain actions. But in a state diagrams, sometimes you may want to end up writing detailed or subdivisions of those diagrams. Yes, you're right.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Cool. Any other question? All right. If not, then I have questions for you. Which of the following components is used to represent the starting point of the state diagram? Pretty simple. Give me the answer.
D.
D. Okay, let's see. Yep, D is the right answer. What does a transition represent in a state chart diagram?
A.
Okay, any other answer?
A.
Okay, let's see. Yes, the answer is A. Cool. Thank you very much, all of you, for your time. I think we are done.